Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you guys are at. Really appreciate you guys joining me today for the call. We're going to talk about kind of moving through obstacles in our lives and how some of us have used those things in our past as reasons why we aren't getting the results that we want in the future, and some of us have used our past as fuel to our fire to break through things and get the most that we can out of our world. And I can't think of a better individual to talk about this subject than David Goggins. He's a humble guy, and he won't tell you all these things, but he's the first individual to be a Navy SEAL, to also be an enlisted honor man in the Army Ranger School, and also in the Air Force, a tactical air controller. He has the world record for Guinness Book of World Records for pull-ups. A phenomenal athlete and really a kind-hearted gentleman who you guys will get to know. And we're going to dive into a little bit of David's history and his future and his new book and how we can use this to improve our own lives. Before we get into kind of your past and your history, David, you said something to me the other day that stuck in my head for a month. And you said something along the lines of there's no leaders anymore. Do you remember how exactly you phrased that?
Yeah, it's pretty much how I said it was, we were talking about this very conversation right now about trying to get this, put together. And my whole thing about writing this book is there are no leaders anymore. A lot of people are out for themselves. To be a leader, it sucks. It really does suck because you're having to put yourself almost last. And you're putting a lot of people before you, a lot of situations, a lot of circumstances before you. And what I see now is a lot of people looking out for themselves first. Then maybe if it helps me to help you, I'll help you, is the mentality that I'm seeing nowadays. So that's where it comes from. It comes from just keeping your eyes opened up, looking around at where the country's going, not any particular person. I could care less what you like, Democrat, Republican, wherever you're at in life. I just see everybody just looking out for themselves and not keeping an open mind.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think that means to us? What should we do about that?
Well, we should do the exact opposite of what's going on in the country right now. As a whole, as people, it's important to go back to the kind of our roots of, opening doors, helping people with, if you see someone carrying a whole bunch of boxes, hey, sir, ma'am, can I help you with that? Getting outside your own world, like, you see someone struggling with their suitcase in the airport, in the airplane. We're so caught up on our phones and what's going on in our immediate sector of life that we're missing everything going on around us. And it is truly affecting how the country is run as a whole. So if you go back to the old school mentality of, if you're a man, open the door for a woman. If you're a woman, whatever, everybody has their roles in life as far as helping one another out. And we just kind of lost those very basic things of being a human being. And it's kind of trickled off into a world of very selfish people that we are so fixated on our phone, society, and what's going on in our own personal lives that we're missing the fact that the person right next to you is struggling carrying some boxes.
Yeah. We got to do a better job of looking around us and helping these individuals. And not only that, the message I get from you so often is we need to take responsibility for being our own leader and leading ourselves out of our own problems, as opposed to looking around and waiting for this savior to get here. And once we've mastered that, we can start helping the rest of the people to follow us through this journey. And your story in itself, which like me, we kind of kept our stories private and internal, for whatever reason, David. But over time, what we realized by sharing those little tiny nuggets, it gave people a reason to push forward themselves. And instead of us making our stories about impressing people, it's now about empowering these people to do something or to push further than they can. And why don't we take that and for the people that don't know you on the call today, give us your history. Let's start from when you were a kid.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a couple of snapshots of it all. I had a very abusive father. My father was an alcoholic, and he owned a skating rink and a bar in Buffalo, New York. Rick James was up there constantly. O.J. Simpson, the Buffalo Bills were up there a lot. But my dad didn't believe in us going to school so much, me and my brother. What he believed in was us working the family business. So by me not going to school so much, I didn't realize I had a severe learning disability. Um, Growing up in a very toxic environment with my father beat the hell. I mean, when I talk about beat the hell out of me, my brother, my mother, that's putting it very lightly. When my dad would get drunk, he would get very violent. So I didn't know I suffered from, I had a severe learning disability, toxic stress. By the time I was 8 years old, I was stuttering, patches of hair falling on my head, white splotches all over my skin. And my mom, great woman, but she was going through the same hell I was. My dad, one time, knocked her out the top of the stairs and then drug her down the stairs by her hair. So this was almost an everyday occurrence from the time I was born to the time I was 8 years old. And we moved to a small town in Brazil, Indiana, where there's about 5 black families. And the KKK marched in the 4th of July parade in 1995. So and this whole town in Brazil, Indiana wasn't racist. But when you come from a horrible foundation and a horrible background, you truly you don't have the proper tools to go into an environment like Brazil, Indiana, and being bullied. They spray painted whoever these kids were, spray painted nigger, we're gonna kill you on my car. They put that in my Spanish notebook. I had that in my locker. I had a noose hanging in my locker. There were several things, but from coming from my background with my father being beat like that, being mentally and physically abused, that it just snowballed into not knowing how to handle the situation I was in. And my mother worked 3 jobs. We lived in a $7 a month place for a very long time until she got like a better job. And so she was never around. So having a learning disability, how I got by with that was I just started copying. I literally cheated on every assignment in school, all the tests, everything. And my self-esteem, I had 2 people. I had David Goggins, which was a very fragile, broken individual that no one knew about. And then I had Goggins. Goggins was that guy who was this tough guy that pretended to be tough. But the real me was David Goggins. I was this broken kid with not many mentors, on my own, trying to figure out how to live life. So that's just a quick background of my life. And then at 14 years old, my mom was getting ready to get married, and he got murdered the day after Christmas. So my story just keeps on trickling down, and it keeps on getting worse and worse and worse until I decided to make something of myself.
At what age was that, David? You look around and you're not the person you want to be. When was that?
Oh, it was several times. The first time I was a junior in high school, and I had a 4th grade reading level, a junior in high school. So I went to take the ASVAB test to get into the military, and I didn't know that I had to take an ASVAB test. I thought the military was just push-ups and sit-ups, stuff like that. So I went to the recruiter's office to take to get in the military so you could take an ASVAB test. And I wasn't familiar with that. So I went home and got my best friend pretty much so I could copy off of him to get into the military on this test. But he had test A and I had test B. So I couldn't copy off this guy. So the only reason why I really learned how to read and write was to get into the military. If it wasn't for the military having a standard, I probably would have, continued on, with just being who I was. So it was the military having a standard that kind of got me down the road of I have to start working to get somewhere in life because no one's going to save me. So at 16 years old, that happened. I ended up taking that test 3 times. I finally passed the test after 3 times. I got in the Air Force. I wanted to be an Air Force pararescueman, which pretty much is a special operator. You jump out of airplanes and you save down pilots. That's basically the gist of the job. And I realized that I was terrified of the water. Literally hated the water. I could swim pretty good. I taught myself how to swim. But what gets everybody out of special operations, it's not the swimming, it's not the running, it's not the yelling. It's the fact that basically they make you very uncomfortable underwater, trying to hold your breath underwater, doing different tasks. And what they do is they put you underwater with a certain task. They make you very uncomfortable. And then they keep you underwater a little bit longer to see how you handle being uncomfortable. So I realized, it's a 10-week program. I was in there for about 6 weeks. I was hanging in there pretty well. Didn't want to quit because I quit everything in my life. I had taken the easy route so many times in my life that this time I'm going to tough it out. I'm going to man up, tough it out. About 4 weeks before graduation, I went to get my blood drawn from the doctor. And all of us did. There's about 25 guys left because we were leaving this school to go on to scuba school, then free fall school. So we had to get a very extensive medical, like a physical. So here I am. I'm sitting in there getting this physical. They draw my blood. 4 days later, it came back. I had sickle cell. Sickle cell is a blood disease that some African Americans have. Under stressful situations, your blood may sickle. If it sickles, you're looking at sudden death, stroke, heart attack, all those things that are not good for your body. So they pulled me out of training for a week because they didn't understand how I made it so far having sickle cell. So they're like, okay, we don't understand this. There's been a few guys die of sudden death in the military from having sickle cell. So they pulled me out for that week. During that week, I went from being very uncomfortable to being comfortable again because they took me from the water. So here I am watching my class going back in the pool. I'm at the pool, but I'm sitting on the side because I can't participate. And I'm watching these guys go through hell like I was going through for 6 weeks. And I said, my God, I don't want to go back in the water again. I hope that they kick me out of training for sickle cell. So I was sitting there thinking, man, they probably are. Guys had died. They pulled me from training. They could probably kick me out of training and send me home. So a week goes by. The doc calls me up and says, come back in the office. And I'm kind of skipping down to the doctor's office thinking, I'm getting the hell out of here, man. I'm going back home. They're going to medically drop me from training and then send me home and medically drop me from the military. I walk in the doctor's office and he said, hey, you've been doing so well in training. We're going to put you back in. You might be that guy. And I was like, good God, man, I can't believe this. So they gave me a waiver, a special waiver to stay in. I was like, geez, I don't want to be here anymore. But I started thinking, I have about 2.5 weeks left. I'm going to graduate the program and I'm going to be good to go. So I said, you can tough it out, man. Get your head back in the game, suck it up, tough it out. So as I'm walking back to my compound to talk to the commanding officer, I have to now meet with him and tell him I'm back in the training. I'm standing face to face with the commanding officer, and the commanding officer says, hey, Goggins, guess what? I'm glad you're back in training. You're a stellar performer. You're a hard guy. I love your work ethic, but you missed a very important week of training. And we got to roll you back to day one, week one. And when I heard that, I went right back to my old ways. I used to lie a lot growing up. When you have very low self-esteem and you stutter and you just can't find your way, I developed a way to try to make friends. And how I did that was I would tell you whatever the hell you wanted to hear. It wasn't the truth. Whatever you wanted to hear, I'd tell you. So in this situation, this time got hard for me because I didn't want to start back from day one, week one. So I looked at the commanding officer and I told him, hey, sir, I'm not for sure that it's smart to go back into training right now because the doc wasn't for sure about sickle cell. He was talking about guys dying, stroke, heart attack, sudden death. I was like, you know what? I'm just not comfortable. So Sergeant Lundberg was his name. He bid off on it. And he said, you know what, we're going to medically disqualify you from training until we figure out more. So I actually quit training. I quit training, but on my official record, it says I got medically disqualified. But in my mind, I know that wasn't the case. In my mind, I wasn't tough enough to go back to day one, week one. So at that time, I was 175 pounds, and I went from 175 to 297. I think we had the picture somewhere. I'm not sure if we do or not. I went from 175 to 297, and I did that in a matter of 3 years. And that picture right there that hopefully everybody can see, that's me about 270, 275. So put another 22, 25 pounds on that, and that was me. So 175 to that in about 3 years, just because my whole life, I just wasn't facing, all these insecurities from my dad, from people calling me nigger growing up, not learning, not knowing how to read, not knowing how to write. I was always in the hole. So whenever things got bad, I always find the easiest way out. And this happened until the fact I was about 24 years old. I got in the military when I was around 22, 23, looking like that, gaining that weight. And I started working for a company called Ecolab, spraying for cockroaches, making $1,000 an hour. Or my fault, $1,000 a month, not an hour, $1,000 a month. And that was my, this is where the real turning point happened for me. I was spraying for cockroaches, and my routine was I worked from 11 o'clock at night to about 7 o'clock in the morning. And I would spray down all these eateries, Cracker Barrel, Old Country, whatever. All these places at nighttime, I go in, I have the keys and the alarms. I go in them and spray them all down. And my last stop would be Steak and Shake. And I stopped by Steak and Shake because I was seriously miserable and depressed. And they had a humongous, large chocolate milkshake. And I had about a 45-minute commute home from all the jobs I work at. So about 7 o'clock in the morning, I'd go by Steak and Shake, spray them down, get a large chocolate shake. Across the street was like a 7-Eleven type of convenience store. I'd go over there and buy a box of mini chocolate donuts, and I would drive 45 minutes home. And I would eat these donuts and drink this shake. And when I would get home, I would turn the TV on, listen to the TV, and take a shower before I would drive to my mom's house and eat my staple breakfast. And my staple breakfast was, those cinnamon rolls that, those Pillsbury ones that come in a package of 8.
Yeah, those are good.
Oh, they're real good, brother. So I was about 297, and my staple breakfast was the whole package of 8 cinnamon rolls. So don't forget, I had a large chocolate milkshake and a box of donuts. I come home, take a shower, go to my mom's house, was about 2 miles down the road, eat those Pillsbury, all 8 of them, probably half a pound of bacon, 8 scrambled eggs, and my choice of Fruity Pebbles or Fruit Loops or whatever. That was my breakfast. Come home, go to bed. And so anyway, this day I was taking a shower and I saw the Discovery Channel show. I heard something on, I don't know if it's Discovery Channel or History Channel, whatever it was, talking about guys going through Navy SEAL training. So it made me think about me going through training. And all I heard was, I was in the shower, all I heard was world's toughest, Navy SEAL, Hell Week. It was a class 224, Navy SEAL class 224. I came out of the shower with the towel that could barely fit my fat butt. And I sit down and I start watching these guys going through training. And my whole life was flashing before me within this 20-some minute, show. And at the end of the show, there's about, 22 guys graduating. And I saw these guys ringing the bell. They were quitting. And all I saw was water, more and more water. Guys passing out in the water, guys jackhammering from being so cold in the water. Just I hated the water. That's all I saw was water, and guys quitting. At the end of the show, they had a graduation for these guys. It took them from first phase, second phase, third phase. At the end of the show, what I saw was this commanding officer got up there to speak to them about what they had just done. And the commanding officer said, we live in a world where mediocrity is often rewarded. These men here graduating today detest mediocrity. And when I heard that, I got a chance to really look at my whole life and see what I've not done with it, and see who I am, and see where I'm not going with my life, and see that I had dug myself in an even deeper hole. Now I'm 297 pounds. I barely graduated high school, and I'm making $1,000 a month. And this is my life. And that's where the enormous change happened, was at 24 years old on that couch with no trainers, no coaches, no life coaches, no money. My mom was 2 miles down the street, but she's still going through her demons from my dad and her soon-to-be husband being murdered. All these things. I was alone on this couch, and I thought to myself, man, no one's coming to save you, David. No one's coming to save you, man. You have got to pull off a miracle. You have got to get out of your own head. You've got to create a whole new dialogue. The most important conversation is the one you have with yourself. You wake up with it, you walk around with it, you go to bed with it, and pretty soon you act on it. And I was acting on that conversation for the majority of my life. And the conversation was, you are a fake human being. It is time to put some substance behind who you want to be in life. And the journey from there was the most salacious thing I can ever be involved in my life. To change that human being to the person that's in front of you now, talking to you at 43 years old, it's the biggest trophy I'll ever have in my entire life. So
you went back over to the Navy and you said, hey, I want to be a SEAL. I'm assuming they kind of looked at you and laughed.
Yeah, so it wasn't that easy. Basically at 297 pounds, 24 years old, I walked into several recruiters. For 2 weeks, I would get off of work, call recruiters, walk into recruiter offices and say, hey, I want to be a SEAL. And I would get the same response, man. The same response is, hey, man, we can't help you out, man. Like, you can't even get in the daggone Navy. To be in the Navy, you have to be 191 pounds at your height. You're obese, you're overweight, your BMI, you're just, and on top of that, I had to take the ASVAB again.
Oh.
That military test, man. So I was like, oh God, dog, what the hell, man? So anyway, I wasn't giving up this time. I was hell bent on being somebody, to the point where I didn't care if I even died. Whatever it took me, I didn't care anymore.
But you still failed. But you still failed a couple times, right?
Oh yeah. So I'm not even in the Navy yet. So basically, I finally get a recruiter to look at me, and he didn't look at me yet. I actually called him on the phone. He was busy. His name is Steven Salgio. He was busy. He said, come on in the office. And when I walked in the office, man, the whole recruiting office like dropped their jaw, because I walk in carrying a milkshake, 297-pound guy. And he said, man, I don't think this is going to work out. I was a prior service guy from the Air Force. He weighed me at 297. I had to lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months, to make a long story short, just to get into the Navy. I ended up doing that, and I became the only person in Navy SEAL history to go through 3 hell weeks in 1 year. Wow. So that was a very big accomplishment for me. I was very fortunate, and people don't see it that way. Like, my God, you went through 3 hell weeks, and I call it being fortunate. Nowadays, it's not even allowed because it's like inhumane. But back in the time frame I went, it was allowed. So Hell Week is 130 hours of continuous training. It's either the third, fourth, or fifth week of Navy SEAL training. Navy SEAL training is 26 weeks long. People think Hell Week is like all of Navy SEAL training. No, Hell Week is just 1 week of Navy SEAL training, but it's the hardest week in the military, in all the military. So it starts on Sunday and it ends on Friday. And basically how this whole thing works out is you get about 2 hours of sleep the whole time. And their whole job is to kick the living shit out of you, literally to the point of where you want to quit every single day. They weed those guys out, usually by Tuesday, and then they see what you're truly made of. So when you're at your absolute worst, you haven't slept yet. You don't get your first hour of sleep until Wednesday. You're completely out of it. And then that's when they crank it up. And that's when they see what you're made of. It was in that moment. So really, when I was losing the weight and I was trying to get to Navy SEAL training, I was growing up there. But it was in Hell Week when I realized that I always put people above me, especially these Navy SEALs. It's like, my God, these guys are the best, the best. They're amazing. They're this and that. But once I got into the environment of battle for me was Hell Week. When I got into the extreme environment of mental warfare, I realized that the very life that God had given me, the cards that I was dealt, the horrible hand I was given, I always looked at it as that. I always looked at it as, my God, my life sucks, man. Everybody's life is better. But once I got into hell, and Hell Week that is, and I started realizing that my life was the perfect training ground. It was a perfect environment, the perfect training ground for the life I had chosen, which was trying to be a SEAL, going to Ranger School, all those things like that. So I was starting to now develop this indestructible toolbox through the life that God had given me. And I started seeing it in a very different way than I always had. I started seeing it as a gift versus a curse.
We tend to put these people on pedestals around us and think that maybe they've always been athletic, or they've always been skinny, or they've always been rich, or they've always been smart. But for the vast majority of these successful people, that's actually not the truth. The toughest and the most successful had 8 years of failure before they looked around and everybody thinks they're an instant success.
That's so true. And I'm glad you mentioned that. That was my biggest hang up in life, was I saw everybody as better than me. Everybody came from a better place than me. You don't know anybody. You don't know where they come from, who they are. We all see the surface of somebody. Like right now, people love putting a title on me when they meet me. Oh my God, you did 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours. You ran 205 miles in 39 hours. You did this, you did that. All these accomplishments that I've done now, they want to put a title on me, not knowing my backstory, not knowing how I got here today. We keep everything at such a surface level, but through failure is great success. For those people who are willing to stay the journey and stay the long, long, long journey, at the end of that becomes a very sharp sword, a very, very sharp sword. If you continue to beat that thing in the ground and beat it and beat it and beat it and throw it in the fire and throw it in the fire, I'm talking about us as humans. And if we can always come out of the fire and come out of the fire, pretty soon, if you look at that fire the right way, you will be as sharp as a sword. And it's the honest to God's truth. Your mind will gain strength through the hell you've been through.
We put these titles on people because we're looking for reasons to justify why we can't do what they've done or be who they are or accomplish what they've accomplished.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you get into being a Navy SEAL. You do it on your third try through, if I remember correctly, and you go through that entire experience with stress fractures through your body, and you persevere through that. What was your next biggest challenge?
So just to touch on the stress fractures, just so people understand that, when I started my third time going back through Navy SEAL training, I had 16 stress fractures. And Captain Bowen, which was the CEO in charge of BUDS, Navy SEAL training is BUDS, he wasn't going to allow me to go through again. So this is my third and last time going through, and he gave me a few months to heal. Stress fractures don't heal up that fast. So I actually said another lie. I said I was healed because I knew that my time was coming to an end to go, to go be Navy SEAL. And what I did every morning was I had a picture, but I won't gross you all out, of my feet, how they looked going through Navy SEAL training. But I would put my black sock on at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, duct tape my feet all the way up to the mid of my calf, put another black sock on, and that's how I went through training. Was I pretty much cast my feet up all the way up to the mid of my calf, just so I wouldn't, from the pivot point where your ankle goes to your shin, I would tape that up so my ankle wouldn't move to stress my stress fractures. So that's what he's talking about with my stress fracture. That's how I went through Navy SEAL training the third time. And the funny thing about it is, by the time I got 4 months in the Navy SEAL training, my stress fractures had healed by running on them. So I don't know what that means, but just to give you a little tidbit about that. The very next thing that happened to me that was very challenging was, after I graduated Navy SEAL training, we had a guy die in that class, in that Hell Week. Mr. Scott died. It was one of the worst Hell Weeks they had to date. I graduated, and I actually gained about 50 pounds back, 60 pounds back. But I didn't gain it back in fat. I became pretty much a bodybuilder. I still to this day, I hate running, even though I run every day. I believe to sharpen your sword, which is your mind, you must do something that sucks every day. You must challenge yourself outside your own comfort zone. You cannot live in a world that you are great at. If you live in a world that you're great at, you will not grow. You will stay right there. That's just my mindset. So some of you are familiar with the story of Lone Survivor. Marcus Luttrell is a good buddy of mine. If you're not, I'll give you a 1 second about that. It was one of the worst incidents in SEAL history. There was 4 Navy SEALs doing an operation. They got rolled up on. 3 of the Navy SEALs died. Marcus Luttrell is the only survivor. They sent a QRF team, which is a quick reaction force team, to save these guys. That got blown out of the sky. All those guys died. A lot of them were Navy SEALs. I was at military free fall school with Marcus Luttrell's twin brother named Morgan Luttrell, who's a great friend of mine. So is Marcus Luttrell. Me and Marcus Luttrell speak on this thing called the Patriot Tour together, where we travel around telling our stories. Well, to back up, I was at military free fall school with his twin brother, Morgan. I got a call as we were graduating military free fall school that Marcus was missing, and everybody on the operation had died. They got, they got killed. And my job was to tell his twin brother that his brother might be dead. So I get the call from the command. The command tells me, David, pretty much, I don't think Mark or Morgan knows about his brother. I told Morgan that his brother might be dead. He looked at me and said he's not dead. As a twin, they had this feeling about one another. He didn't feel like he was dead. He knew he was alive. I thought it was all a bunch of hoodoo. 4 days later, I get a call from Morgan saying they found Marcus alive. This is where things changed for me. So at 250 pounds, I heard this story. I knew Danny Dietz. He was on the mission. I knew Axe. He was on the op. I knew Murphy. I was in training with most of these guys. So I decided to Google races to see if I could do to raise money for a Special Operations Warrior Foundation. And the Special Operations Warrior Foundation is a foundation that sends kids to school 100% tuition. If your dad was a special operator and died in the war, this foundation would send your kid to school 100% tuition. Great foundation. So I had to find something to do. So just to back up, I hadn't gone running so I hadn't run over 20 miles at one time in my entire life. At this time in my life, I wasn't running at all. I probably ran maybe 20 miles the entire year. And this is in November when I decided to call this race director up. So I Googled the 10 hardest races in the world. And what came up number one was a race called the Badwater 135. It's a 135-mile run through Death Valley in the summertime. I had no idea these races existed. I thought this was a stage race where you run like 15, 20 miles a day, set up a barbecue, camp out, and then run some more miles the next day, until you get 135 miles. And like I said, this is in the summertime in Death Valley. So what happens is I call the race director up for this race called the Badwater 135. He says, hey, have you run 100 miles before? I thought it was in a calendar year. I was like, what in the calendar year? He goes, no, you got to run 100 miles in 24 hours or less. So I basically was like, no, I've never done it before. He said to qualify, you have to do that, run 24 hours or run 100 miles in 24 hours or less. And I call him up on a Wednesday, weighing 250 pounds roughly. And there's only 2 more races I can do before the deadline ends for the application process for this Badwater race. One race happened to be on Saturday, literally three days later. So Chris Kosman said, hey, to qualify, you got to do this. So 3 days later, I was in San Diego running around a 1-mile track for 24 hours, trying to get 100 miles on no training at all. And I detail it really good in my book, and I won't go through the grossness of it all right now. But at mile 70, having never trained for this kind of run, I didn't run over, literally, I probably didn't run 20 miles the whole year. The only cardio I did that whole year pretty much was I did the elliptical trainer every Sunday for 20 minutes. And here I am for a 100-mile race around a 1-mile track in San Diego in November. I got to mile 70, and my nutrition was Ritz crackers and Mileplex. I got to mile 70, and I sat down in this blue lawn chair, and my ex-wife was there, and she goes, you don't look too good. And I go, no, I don't feel good at all. And I had to go to the bathroom. I hadn't gone to the bathroom in over 12 hours. And I couldn't stand up because my blood pressure was all messed up. And I sat there in that chair and peed blood down my leg and literally crapped up my back. So with 30 miles to go, I through my whole life, I had been developing this mind, this whole new mindset. And this is where I decided to start using it. And I pulled it off. I did 101 miles in 19 hours and 6 minutes and went on to do the Badwater. And that was probably the hardest thing I've done in my life. It trumps Navy SEAL training. It trumps everything I've ever done because I was so underprepared that's when I realized, that's when I developed the 40% rule, about how most of us only go 40%. And our brains have these governors, like a car. A car has a governor. And if you're, driving your car and it car's a governor on it, the car may be able to go 130 miles an hour, but that governor is set at 91, and your car can't go past that. It wants to go past that, but it can't go past that. Our brains have these governors also, where our minds, if it feels pain, discomfort, insecurities, all these different things, fear, that governor kicks in and it prevents us from giving our very best. So I figured out different ways on how to get past this governor.
Well, it kicks in at 40%, meaning that we have 60% more potential inside us. When I first read that statement from you, before I met you, it really made an impact on me because I have always felt like I have a good Ben inside me and I have this little bastard bad Ben inside me. And the bad Ben is always saying it'd be easier to quit. You shouldn't do this. You should give up. You should quit this business or this thing. And the good Ben says it'll be worth it if you make it through. It'll be worth it if you make it through. But it's hard because that bad Ben, that little son of a gun is always chirping in our ear. What do we do to push through that and take advantage of that extra 60% of potential we have?
Well, I call it the 1 second rule. The 1 second rule is, I'll give you a good example. Most of the guys who quit Navy SEAL training, they quit in Hell Week. And they'll quit within the first day of Hell Week. The first day. And all Hell Week is basically a typical day of Navy SEAL training. These guys do fine going through Navy SEAL training, but when it comes to Hell Week, they spaz out. They spaz out because they're not going to get any sleep and they're not going home to a nice warm bed at nighttime. So they're going to have you for 1 week where they're going to kick the crap out of you. So that 1 second decision is this. We get in a situation that our mind is not able to break down into small pieces. When you're going through normal Navy SEAL day, your mind says, oh, not a big deal. I'm going to go home, get in a nice warm bed, maybe see my girlfriend, go to a movie. The day is going to end. Your mind can comprehend that. It can comprehend the fact that today is going to end and I have something to look forward to. What Navy SEAL Hell Week is you have nothing to look forward to for a long time. You're suffering and you're suffering and you're suffering and you're suffering even more. And it's only 48 hours. And then you're going to suffer for another 100 hours after that. So your mind is already in this spastic mode. The spastic mode is, I have to get the hell out of here. It's your fight or flight, and usually it's flight. So to answer your question, the 1 second decision is what gets most of us is they get in this situation where, like in Hell Week, they put you out in that cold water for the first hour of 130 hours. These guys are the coldest they've ever been, and their mind is thinking, I have to be this cold for another 129 hours. They can't break that down. They're not going home. They're not going to warm up. It's not going to end for a long time. So the first step of trying to find more of that 40% to try to get to that 100% is you have to be in control of that very thought process. That thought process is, how can I stay here just a little bit longer? Because you're never going to get to 100% if you're constantly ringing that mental bell of get the hell out of here. You have to be able to stay in the fight longer. So how you do that is control that 1 second. And how we do that is we have to control our minds. Get control back. When our mind's starting to spaz out, find a way to not think about 130 hours or whatever your task may be. Like I've run 205 miles at one time in 39 hours. Can you imagine if I were to think about 205 miles at mile 1? Your brain would say, this is stupid. What are you doing? This is crazy. Even at mile 50, if I thought about it. So you have to be able to live in that moment. You cannot allow your mind to get away from you. You can't allow it to start thinking about the pain, the suffering. Worry about that. It is coming, whether it be mental or physical pain. This isn't just about working. I'm not saying run 205 miles. I'm not saying go through Hell Week. I'm not saying be a SEAL. I am saying be your best. If your best is or a computer person, whatever it is, be your best means you have to be in that moment. Don't allow your mind to start going away from that moment. Because when it does, your mind is the most powerful thing that we have. It will win. It will get away from you. It will trick you into thinking you're not good enough. You shouldn't be here. This is too long of a journey. Blah, blah, blah. But if you can stay in the moment, control your thought process, control what you're saying to yourself, you can slowly inch forward. And that's just the first tool of many in the 40% rule.
Wow. You know, I teach our people that we tend to complicate things to justify our inactions, meaning that we try to make things really big and then we come up with a reason why we can't accomplish that really big thing. And your way of putting that into that 1 second rule of digesting that down into what is the next step that I have to take, because we can always take one more step. It's
That's
imagining those 10,000 more that'll stop you in your tracks.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
When we think about some more lessons that are in your new book, Can't Hurt Me, what do you think the big takeaways for people are going to be in the book?
Well, one big takeaway is I have this thing called the accountability mirror. And that's really where all this starts at. Trying to find the 40%, trying to find that 1 second, trying to armor your mind, trying to callous your mind. All these things I have in this book, all these different mental tactics, mental tools to find how can I win the war in the morning. So a lot of us, we wake up already defeated. We wake up. So when you leave your house, even before you leave your house, life is coming at you very fast. It just is. It's the world we live in. People try to make it all clean and, oh my God, your outlook. No, it's just true. Life is coming at you fast. So you have to take advantage of the things that are in front of you that you can control. For me, I try to win the war in the morning, which means don't get up in the morning time and start losing, which is like hit the snooze button. Immediately in the morning, you already start to fail yourself. You're already falling behind the 8 ball of life. You want to attack life already starting to put that armor on. Like before you go into combat, they give you body armor. You got to start putting that mental armor on every single morning you wake up. So when you get into that situation of life where your boss is angry, or you're losing your job, or you can't pay your bills, or you're not making the money you should be making, or your wife or husband or kids, whatever comes at you of life, you've already started to put the mental armor on in the morning by winning the war against yourself in the morning. So when those things come at you through the day, you have something to fall back on, which is the fact that I've armored myself for this crap that's happening now. Versus saying, God, I got up late this morning, hit the snooze button, I didn't shave, I didn't shower, I rushed out the house, and it snowballs. So when I'm going back to the accountability mirror is when I started this journey, I broke everything down to the smallest molecule. Like I said, I didn't think about running 10,000 steps. I didn't think about losing 106 pounds in less than 3 months. I thought about let's lose a pound. Like most people having that kind of daunting task in front of me, it's just not coming off fast enough. I quit. I'm done. Versus looking at all the small, great accomplishments you've done on this journey, taking that, rebottling it, you have to rebottle these accomplishments as more fuel. So the accountability mirror is just that. I had these sticky notes all over my mirror as, okay, today I'm not losing 106 pounds. Today I'm burning 3,500 calories today, which is a pound. That's what I'm doing. Today I will accomplish this goal. And I didn't put the 106 pounds up there. I had these, so the accountability mirrors, what did I do today and what didn't I do today? My dad messed me up. My mom messed me up. The kids that call me nigger messed me up. But now all that shit in my life is now mine to own. It's not mine. They're not coming back to help me. So now I have to now take this, repackage it, hold myself accountable for whatever life throws at me, and start fixing it. It all starts with the reflection in the mirror, and that's my accountability mirror. Don't blame anybody for where you're at. Even if people may have helped you get there, don't blame them. This is how you fix yourself.
You know what I love about that, David? This call is filled with a whole bunch of really high achievers, and maybe not all in athletics and maybe not all in business, but there's really high achievers. These achievers tend to put a goal in their head, and they make their life or their year or their 5 years or their 10 years about that one goal. And then they get up to that goal and they accomplish it, and they have 10 seconds of euphoria. And then all of a sudden they look around and there's another thing they got to go do. And that means that they have no happiness or joy. And what I hear you saying is you're saying, freaking enjoy the journey and
Yes.
make little tiny victories that you can be your summits along the way, because that actual summit, it doesn't last long.
Right. Right. Like I say to everybody, man, like the biggest trophy I have in my life is what I'm talking to you right now about. And this is very, this is very surface. My book goes very detailed. But that is my, we have to not live in that moment forever, because there can't be a finish line. There just can't be. The only finish line is death. But we have to enjoy the journey. We have to continue to find our new 100%. There's a tons of vets that I talk to, and they say, well, I don't have any, I can't run anymore. I don't have any legs or whatever. I'm like, okay, roger that, man. So what is your new 100%? What can you do now with what you have? With what you have right now, what the hell is your new 100%? We can't worry about you don't have legs. We can't worry about that. We can't worry about any of this crap. What do we have to work with now? Let's find that new 100%. So that's why I keep on telling you, there is no finish line, man. There's always a journey to either give back, to help out, to help yourself, to help others. Whatever you gotta do, you're constantly pushing yourself to that next that next goal, that next new level.
I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and one of my favorite ones was with Joe Rogan, and you talked about don't allow these other individuals to have this self-talk for you, or to tell you that it's okay to be at where you're at. And I thought to myself, because I'm not a super skinny guy right now, David, I go in my highs and my lows, and I'm kind of chubby. And what if I said that to somebody, they'd say, no, you're not fat. And what I thought when I heard you have this conversation is, I don't need that shit. What I need is, I need somebody to say, yeah, you could probably do a little better and you should go try, instead of just telling me that I'm okay, or telling me that hitting 50% of my goal is okay. We don't necessarily need these people around us patting us on the back saying it's okay to be average and ordinary, because really what they want is they want company.
You're right. And I have a saying that I always tell people the same thing. I tell people, we love hanging around people that tell us what we want to hear, not what we have to hear. And what you have to hear at times like that is, you're not doing enough. We don't have, we live in a world with very thin skin. And I had very thin skin back in the day, which is why nothing changed for me. Nothing changed for me, because people go, my God, like they say, what did you say in the accountability mirror when you started changing? I called myself fat. I called myself dumb. I called myself whatever the hell the truth was. It wasn't pretty. And a lot of us want to make this thing look like a nice rose garden. You don't fix problems that way. You don't fix problems by making yourself feel better, by talking to yourself in a way. No, be real with what you are and who you are and what's going on in your life. And that's how you fix problems. It's okay. If you're fat, you're fat. I was once there. Fix it. It can be fixed. You're not being down on yourself. You're not being hard on yourself. You're calling yourself what it is. It's the reality of what you are. What are you going to do with the reality of what you are? If you give yourself this get out of jail free card of, oh, you know what? It really isn't that bad. It really is. It really is. And it's okay to say that. And that's how you start to fix it. That's the accountability mirror right there.
Absolutely. You said it well. You tell yourself the truth. And I think it's important to be around those people that push us to be uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about money so much, but you're financially successful. You're a successful individual, but you work for $12 an hour in your off time. What are you doing with that time? Tell us a little bit about that, but I want to know why you do it.
Well, I am a wildland firefighter. So I go out 4 months a year, and I fight wildland firefighter. I'm a wildland firefighter. So I don't need to do it. I don't have to do it. I'm 43 years old. I've been through a lot in my life. But it is very, I believe in starting from scratch. So what that means is, no matter where you're at in life, sometimes we get very comfortable. The worst thing that could ever happen to a human being is they become civilized. We forget on how we got to where we're at today. We forgot. A lot of us on this call make a lot of money, are very successful. But what got you there was that dog in you, was that come hell or high water. I don't give a damn how cold it is outside, how miserable I am, how just how uncomfortable I become, I will get to where I'm at today. And we want to get further than that. But we start to say, how do we do it? How we get further than where we're at today is go back to the roots. Go back to the very root of how you got to where you're at. So why I'm a wildland firefighter today is, first of all, I love giving back. Second of all, it takes me back to the roots of hard work, dedication. You are underappreciated down there. I mean, I am, like, one instance, we dug fire line, which is basically digging down to mineral soil for 3 miles. Imagine 18 to 24 inches for 3 miles. And there's 12 people digging 3 miles of that. And you have to cut down these trees that are in the way to continue digging. And then you lay fire hose for 3 miles. That's one evolution out of many. And you make $12 an hour. And once you get through digging, you sleep out in the dirt and you start digging some more. And I'll tell you one story it's all about staying humble in your mind. And there's this one kid who's out there digging line with me, digging fire line, and he wanted to buy a pair of shoes, a pair of running shoes. And he said the running shoes he wanted like 60, 70, 80 bucks. Not very much compared to what running shoes cost nowadays. And he looked up in the mountains because we got through digging up in the mountains. And he said, for me to get these running shoes, it was going to take me 5 hours of digging fire line. He said, the shoes I have right now are okay. Because he didn't lose the fact, we lose the value of the dollar, the hard work it takes to get that. So these are some of the lessons I take from going back to where I started, going back to what made me David Goggins. What started callous in my mind was picking up that shovel, was picking up that axe, was grinding every single day. But what happens is we start getting those 5-star hotel rooms, flying first class, which is all good. We all earn it. But always go back. Like for me, I lived in a $7 a month place for a few years growing up. I call it my $7 a month mentality. I'm always paying rent in that $7 a month place. I'm always paying rent there. I'm always living there, a little fraction of me. So that's kind of the mentality that we need to have to get better.
Yeah, I've heard the story that you talk about that kid comparing that work, and it's a lot of work to be up there, I imagine, doing that, and it's humbling to hear that you're up there, and we really appreciate it. What percentage of your life do you think you spend being uncomfortable, or what percentage of your day?
I would say I wake up every morning, I run every single morning, which is very uncomfortable for me. I would say a good 3 hours, because I stretch out every single day, and my stretch out routine is about 2.5 hours every night for the past 5.5 years. I had a lot of health issues. So I'll touch on that for a second, why I stretch out like that. I think it will help a lot of people listening to this. We have a muscle called the psoas muscle. It is PSOAS, psoas. Google it, learn about it. It may save your life one day. 6 years ago, I started experiencing a lot of health issues. I went from being able to run 205 miles at one time, do pull-up records, all this kind of stuff, to not being able to get out of bed. I had these large lumps on my hip flexors and on the back of my head. And slowly but surely, this psoas muscle attaches to your T12, your thoracic spine. And that muscle started getting so tight. And how it gets tight is basically by us sitting down, like I'm sitting down right now, and also by us being under stress. So from the time you're born until the time you die, you're under a lot of stress. My whole life has been stressed. From the time I was born to me going in the military, everything I've done has been stressful. That psoas muscle, as it tightens up, it starts to yank on your spine, starts to shut down different nerve endings, nerves going through your body, very important nerves going through your body. different things like that. And so, long story short, doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Um, they kept on running tests. The test came back, you're not too bad. You're not too bad here, not to be feeling the way you feel. Went from running 205 miles to not being able to get out of bed. I talked to this stretch therapist a long, long time ago. He said, man, you are so tight. You have got to start stretching out, man. You are so, so tight. So I thought I was just dying. I thought I was just, I couldn't go to work anymore. I talk about it in my book also. Couldn't go to work anymore. And over a period of time, I said, you know what? I'm not going to give up. That's not what I do. So if I can't run, I can't go to the gym, I can't do anything. I started going to college, started doing that. And I also started stretching out. I started stretching out. And the more I stretched out, the more these muscles in my hip flexor started opening up. And those lumps started going away. And I shaved my head almost every morning. And I had the same pattern, shave my head, and I go over that bump real delicate so I wouldn't cut my head. I started realizing that bump was shrinking. And I was on several different medications. And over a period of time, the medication wasn't working anymore. So I'd get off it. And I'd get off it. A few years later, now I'm only on one medication. And I'm soon to be coming off of that one, all from stretching out. So that's I hate it. Going back to your question, it's very miserable to stretch out for 2.5 hours a day. And it was a lot more than that when I first started stretching out because I couldn't do anything else. And so that's my discipline of life. So I'm uncomfortable at least 3-4 hours a day, I would say.
Hmm. David, I don't know what you have on your day today. Do you have time for a couple questions?
I do.
So before we go to questions, we're going to ask you guys to type in the chat box a couple of questions, and we'll ask David a handful of these. I sent you guys the link for his new book, Can't Hurt Me. It's pre-order. It's coming out December 4th. I think it'd be great for you to buy for you and your team and to share with these individuals around you. I'm going to do something special, meaning that if you buy a copy of this book on Amazon and you email the receipt to me, books@benkinneytraining.com, I will enter you guys in to win a day with me here in Bellingham, Washington, where we'll tear apart your business and your lives, and we'll help you guys get back on track on a business point of view. And David will make you do push-ups and pull-ups while we're here. So each book you buy, you'll be entered into that drawing. So we hope you guys take advantage of that and help get his message out. And trust me, you don't make a lot of money from books. You do these books because you want to make a difference. You want to get your message out there. Anything you'd add to that, David, as I pull up a question?
Yeah, I just to add to that, and thank you very much, Ben, for all you've done for me and your support. But just to add to that, I had 2 offers of $300,000. So my book went to book auction, and me being a first-time author, I think I have like 630,000 followers on Instagram. I just started Instagram a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and people, I guess, like my content because everything I talk about is about getting better. It's never about me kissing my own ass, about getting better. So long story short, my book went to book auction, and 2 of the top 5 publishing houses, bid on it, and they both bid, $300,000. And I was going to go to contract with one of them. And for a first-time author, that is a humongous, a humongous advance. So before I signed the contract, I took that 1 second and made that 1 second about 5 hours. And I believe in taking a lot of quiet time. We live in a world that moves so fast, and you don't grow with noise. You grow with quiet. Your mind needs to be in a quiet place to grow, to get stronger, to figure out where you want to go in life. So I got real quiet, and I started thinking about my life and everything I'd gone to get where I'm at today. And I turned down that book offer. I turned down at $300,000, and I actually self-published. So I self-published my book. So just to give you a little bit more insight about that, and I financed my own book. So this isn't about money for me. You know, I turned down that money. This is like I said, my biggest trophy is the life I've led. I've lived a life that I am finally proud of. I lied about my life for so many years because I wasn't proud, which is why I can tell you all how jacked up my life used to be because I'm now finally proud of it. I don't care if I'm judged. I used to care about being judged. I used to care about what people thought about me. I'm able to tell you anything you want to know about me because I no longer care what you think about me because I think very highly of myself in the humblest of ways. My journey has kicked my ass to the point of, I was in submission, and I came out of it. So, yeah, I will answer some questions.
Well, what I love about your book and just the way you think, David, is this isn't something about bragging about your life. It's something where we use your life and your stories, but then you give us very tangible, simple things that we can implement and pieces at the end of every chapter for us to sit back and reflect on and do. So it's not like a book that you read and you throw away. It's something that you use to actually improve their life. And maybe people will only implement one of those things, but there's many people on this call today that'll implement, tens or 20 of those different ideas and concepts. Somebody asked, what do you want to accomplish before your life's done? What's left for you to accomplish?
Well, now at first I was out here to just change my circumstances. Now it's my duty to hopefully change people's lives through my story. That a lot of us believe that we have this hardcore ceiling on our lives and what we can accomplish. I'm hopefully through my story, through my book, that ceiling pops open, and you now see that there's endless possibilities to yourself and also the human mind and what it's capable of. And that's what my journey now is to be a leader to other people to show them what is possible.
Have you ever worked with a coach, David, or have you always held yourself accountable?
You know what's funny about that is the introduction of my book talks about that. I got invited to go down to MIT, which was very intimidating to me, to speak with these great minds of mental toughness from MIT. And there's about 200 students in the auditorium to answer your question. And they were all asking these great minds these questions. And I was on a panel. I barely graduated high school, man. And these are these great theorists up here who studied the brain and studied the mind, how it works in harsh environments. And they studied it. They were theorists. No one ever taught me anything. I was a practitioner. I was the only true practitioner on that panel. So all these people, I never had a coach. All these people were asking these theorists questions. And one female said, Mr. Goggins, you haven't answered one question. She said, why? I go, because I don't agree with anything they're saying. Because my mindset was very different than theirs. They had taken a study of normal people, and we're all normal until we don't want to be. And they took a study of normal people, and that's where they got all of their facts from. I said, once you decide to be uncommon, all those facts go away. So all of my, stuff I talk about, it came from me going to hell, being in hell, seeing how your mind functions in a bad environment, how it processes it, and that's what I write about. I write about actual times of life and how my mind processed it and how I got through these times while being in them. So I never had a coach, no.
Somebody really wants to know what you've been drinking the whole time on the call. Looks like you had two drinks there. 2 drinks.
Well, before the call, I just got done running this morning. So one drink here, which was a protein shake, and I'm really big on the essential amino acids. So I take a lot of amino acids during the day. So that's what the second drink was.
Somebody asked, what advice would you give to a teenager?
About anything particular or
Just
just
about
about?
what would the message be that you would deliver to that group right now?
Well, big time is don't follow the crowd. It is important time of your life. This time was the most volatile time of my life when I was a teenager. Man, you think when you're a teenager that is life, like that. Those kids, those people you're around, everything there is your whole entire life. That if you're cool, you got to fit in. You got to all these things have to happen now in this high school time of life. You're so far from the truth by thinking that you won't hardly even see these people again. This is a great time for you now to start callousing your mind and figuring out what you want to do with your life. Start to develop your own personality, your dreams, your values, what you want to stand for, standing for yourself, having a moral compass, and big time not following the crowd. But one thing about high school and being a teenager, that is a snapshot of life. But for some reason, when you're a teenager, you believe that these people are going to follow you to your dead, and they're just your whole life. So understand this, man. I'm 43. I've probably seen two people from high school, and that's not on purpose. It's just what it is. So start to develop for yourself right now at this age is very important.
I think I know what you're going to say to this, but how do you stay motivated?
Well, back in the day, it was for the mere fact of I had a lot of motivation, a lot of drive, and a lot of it was just me changing who I was. Now, how I stay motivated is I travel around the country and I speak to people, young kids, older people, black, white, from all different races, colors, genders, religions, everything. And my message is always about can't hurt me. Can't hurt me is just about staying true to who you are, staying real. There's so many people that do what I do who are inspirational speakers, motivational speakers, whatever. You put yourself out there like this to be the ultimate leader. People are trying to see what you're talking about and live off your example. What motivates me now, what keeps me going up every day is you all. People who listen to me, people who follow me, people who trust in me, people who want to be better. I have to live by example. So when it's miserable outside, when I don't want to study, when I don't want to do even clean my house, make my bed, I will be a liar like I used to be if I'm telling you something that I'm not doing every single day of my life. I have to live by example. I have to live my life. So I couldn't talk to you all today if I didn't have these here following my run. If I didn't run before I talked to you all, I wouldn't have the motivation or the courage to talk to you all because I would be right now false. I would be lying. So what motivates me now is knowing that I live what I talk about, and that's what it is now. I want to practice what I preach. That's my motivation now.
Are you
Set
are
the
you
example.
are you a patient individual?
I used to not be patient at all. My life made me so anxious. My anxiety was so high from my fight or flight muscle. That's what that psoas is. That psoas is your fight or flight muscle. Once again, please study it. Once I started stretching out, so you know I talked about reflection, how a lot of us we don't take those small moments and like, my God, I lost 3 pounds this week. We're gonna lose 106 pounds in 1 week. Um, Having my mind and my body being the way it was, so much anxiety, through stretching out, I am very calm now. So now, yes, I'm very patient. I have to be very patient because I'm going to fail a lot more in life because my goals and my standards of life are very high. With that being said, I will fail a lot more. With that being said, I better be very patient because I will succeed. But I have to be patient to figure out the equation to all of this. And like I tell people sometimes, what changed my life, one thing that changed my life was I was a big believer, or I used to love watching Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky won, round 14, Rocky won.
Apollo Creed.
That's right. Rocky gets knocked down in the 14th round. Apollo's beating the shit out of Rocky. Apollo turns around with his hands up in the air, thinks he finally knocked out this gladiator. And what I love about that scene is that I saw this movie at one of the worst times of my life growing up as a kid. And what I saw was this guy getting up when even his own trainer was saying stay down. That scene is about 2 minutes and 13 seconds long. And all I'm trying to give people, that 2 minutes and 13 seconds changed my mentality, how I look at things. Hopefully through the story you all hear, hopefully through my book, I will provide you that 2 minutes and 13 seconds to change your life. Not saying life is bad, but we can always be better. So we're always looking for that 2 minutes and 13 seconds to just to be better, to find more. And you never know what kind of form it's going to come in. It comes in all kinds of forms. It may come in a movie. It may come in just one person saying the dumbest thing to you. You say, my God, that made the most sense. So always be open-minded to that 2 minutes and 13 seconds that could change your life.
Wow. Are you a faith-based person, David?
I don't talk about it very much, but I am a huge, even though people hear my potty mouth, you will never hear me say God's name in vain, ever. I've never said it. People get so offended by, the F, the S, all that shit, man. I don't understand why they get so offended by it. But I am very big in faith. And one thing I will, on that question, what also keeps me very motivated in life is play a game with me real quick, you all. I don't care if you believe in God, don't believe in God. I'm not here to judge you, but just play a game with me. Say you all believe in God and say that there is a place where you are judged at the end of your life. You guys know that I was a 300-pound, pretty much guy that sprayed for cockroaches. Let's say I did that for the majority of my life. I died at 75 years old and I got to heaven. And in heaven, there's a big long line in heaven. And I can look forward and I see the line, and up ahead of me is 5 or 6 people. And I see this big white chart. And on the chart, it has these different names, and it's your own personal chart. And God's sitting in the chair, and you're sitting in the chair beside God, and God has your chart, and he's ripping it down. I get up there, and he has my chart. And he says, David Goggins on top of it. And he has all these things on this chart. And on the chart, it has 185 pounds, Navy SEAL, Ranger School, Guinness Book of World Records, motivational leader, blah, 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 all down the line. And I look at God and I say, God, it says my name, but none of this stuff is me. I think you have the wrong name with the wrong chart all messed up. He goes, no. This is what you should have been in your life. Because God, the God I know, knows everything. The time you're born, the time you die. My biggest fear in life is to die, to get to heaven, and to look at my chart and to not do everything I was capable of doing, to leave anything out there to risk, to leave anything out there to think about for the rest of my life of why didn't I push harder in this category or the other. So that's just another mind game I play with myself to keep me going every single day.
I got a T-shirt, David, that says "I love Jesus, but I cuss a little." Maybe I should send you one.
Well, make sure you put a lot for me.
You gave us more time than I had asked for, and you generously did this. I really appreciate you giving us the time, and for your staff, Jennifer, helping us organize this and make it happen. It means a lot to me. Any closing message, my friend?
No, if there's another question, I can answer one more, whatever, man. I mean, I'm not for sure if there is or not.
Oh, there's 1,000 questions here. I mean, technical one. Is your book going to be available on Audible?
Yes. Matter of fact, it is very, it's a unique style, the way I did it. You will definitely enjoy it. It'll be on Audible maybe before December 4th. It's coming out maybe before December 4th. I'm not for sure how the whole Audible book thing works, but there's a lot more. You will enjoy it. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, it's on Audible and you will enjoy it.
Somebody asked, what's the best way to build up one's self-confidence?
Is honestly to make a list of things that you're not good at. And the more you start to attack that list, the more you start to attack the things that you're not great at, the more you start to break down those barriers of fear. We fear judgment. We fear judgment on ourselves. We fear all those things. Once you can break down those things by constantly doing them, by failing and falling on your face, laughing at yourself, laughter is a huge thing at yourself, kind of scraping away all that crap, all that artificial crap. It starts though with doing things that you're not comfortable doing and realizing, wow, there's a lot of growth. If I were to continue doing what I was comfortable doing, none of you would have ever heard of David Goggins, ever. So there's a lot on the other side of that box. There's a lot out there. So start there. I
Yeah,
answered a couple more.
I think the amount of success we're going to have in our life, David, is directly related to the amount of time we can spend being uncomfortable.
Very
And you're
much
a
so.
good example of living in that uncomfortable, and maybe even finding some form of energy or joy from being uncomfortable. I don't know if that's a true statement to make for you.
It's very true. You find a lot more than that even.
Did you ever make amends with your father?
So I left when I was 8. I went back. So when I left at 8 years old, I was very young. I had a very young mind. All I saw was abuse. I went back when I was 22 years old. I was a very fragile person. I was 200 and some odd pounds, very heavy, very insecure, even more secure than I was then, very damaged. But I wanted to see my dad through my own eyes as an adult, a very immature, lying, insecure adult. But I wanted to go back and see him as an adult. I went back and realized he was the evil man. And that was my father. And I realized he didn't say sorry. I didn't say sorry. I was able to forgive him because that was a big part of my journey, was being able to go back and seeing that man and seeing where I came from. The insecurities that he had to have, because my mom didn't do anything wrong to him. I didn't do anything wrong. He beat us for no reason. So to get over the hate that I had of this man, I had to realize there was a reason. I had to be grown up enough to take a different vantage point to kind of reset my mind, is to look at him, for the person he was and what made him be so evil. He's now dead. He died about 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't go to his funeral, not for hate, but just because I had moved on and there was too much evil there. But I moved on and I've forgiven him for whatever.
Yeah, if we don't forgive people, then they continue to steal from our mind and our heart and our body. And forgiveness can actually be a very selfish thing because it sets us free for sure. Somebody wants to know
100%.
what your morning routine looks like.
So every morning I wake up, I eat breakfast. Either it's bacon and eggs or sometimes it's oatmeal, something like that. Then I go straight for my run. I run every single morning, because I literally, y'all may not believe it, it's the one thing I hate to do more than anything in the world. But it sets the tone because I beat myself. If you beat yourself every day and you continue to win those battles, that's what develops this. I come home, I usually go to the gym, and that's before my day even starts. Then I'm working. I have tons of work I do nowadays as a retired guy. As you all know, from the months of April to September, I'm a wildland firefighter. And then every single night, I stretch out for 2 to 3 hours, 2.5 hours every single night. That is my daily life. And that's it. That's what I do.
What do you do? What do you do while you're stretching out?
Sometimes I do absolutely nothing. I just sit there and I'm big on rehab and prehab, recovering my body, recovering my mind. Life can get stressful. Life can get fast. I like to reset. I like to go to a reset button in my mind to never allow life to continue to just come at me. I find a spot every day to where I attack life and I reset it. And during my stretch time, I reset it to get ready for the next day. I shut off work. I shut off life. I shut off noise. I shut off quiet. I shut off life. You have to do that. You have to do it every single day, no matter what you're doing. Hit the stop button. That's what I do. I reset it. Sometimes, man, I'm really big into sports. I love basketball. I love football. Those are my things I do. Sometimes I sit down and stretch out and watch that.
I'll make this the last question.
Okay.
Can you talk more about the calluses that you've created on your brain and how that guides you through your day? I have heard you say that a couple times.
So basically, y'all can't really see my hands, but they're very calloused. So when I was doing the pull-up record, I failed twice before I finally got it the third time, and I developed a whole hand full of calluses, and those calluses were protecting my hands. So this is where I get the whole mentality about callus in your mind. The calluses for protecting my hands from the bar, doing pull-ups. So the whole callous your mind is you want to callous your mind against life. We've all been through a lot of hard things, and I'm callousing my mind over the victim's mentality. So I had a very victim's mentality. Once you have that mentality, you are doomed to fail. The rest of your life, you will fail. The rest of your life, you will fail. So how you start to callous over the victim mentality is really start to do these things to build self-esteem. The biggest thing, and once again, going back to that teenager, that question about the teenager, what I would tell a teenager also is you have to build self-esteem. How you build self-esteem, how you build confidence is by developing self-discipline. Self-discipline helps with all these things. Like for me, people think that why I got to where I'm at today was by running and all this other stuff. It helped. But I only talk about it for a fraction. Was how I learned how to read and write was I basically would go to the store, I would buy stacks of spiral notebooks, and I had these manuals because my mind, even to this day, it can't retain anything. So I have a photographic memory, but I don't have it just I was born with it. I go through and I write down every single page over and over and over again of a manual. When I take that test, I recall back to the manual, page 71. I remember seeing that because I wrote it down so many daggone times. I can then regurgitate it on paper. So that is how you have to start callousing your mind, by continuously going back in the fight. Go back in the fight. Fail, take 24 hours to dwell on it. It's fine. That's human nature. Go back in. And the more you go back in and go back in and go back in, like repeatedly touching that pull-up bar. If you stop touching the pull-up bar, your hands get soft. You have to continue touching the things that you don't want to touch in your mind. You start to callous your mind, it starts to build, it starts to get tougher. There is no secret to this. The only secret is you have to get outside your own head into the life that you truly want. And that comes with a lot of sacrifice, and a word that people hate is suffering. There is suffering involved in the things that you want to achieve. It's not always going to be comfortable.
Well said, buddy. I wish you the best of luck on your book launch. I know it's going to be hugely successful. If you do any events, public events, let us know. We'll make sure that all of our people here know where to go see you and meet you in person. I'm sure they would love that. And everybody that's on the call today, thanks for sticking through it with us. David, can't thank you enough, man. It meant a lot to us, and we're all have a ton of takeaways. So thank you for that.
Ben, thanks again. I appreciate you all for listening. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. See you guys later.